Story 1. The Howling in Blackwood Forest. I've been hunting for over 2 decades, tracking everything from deer to mountain lions. But nothing could have prepared me for what I encountered deep in Blackwood Forest. It was late November, and a heavy frost covered the ground. I was out with my partner, Greg, hunting for elk. The forest was eerily quiet that evening. Not a single bird call or rustling of leaves, just an oppressive stillness. Greg and I split up to cover more ground, our rifles loaded and radios on. As I moved through the thicket, I caught a strong, musky scent. Something foul, like decaying flesh mixed with wet fur. The hair on the back of my neck bristled. Then I heard it, a deep, guttural growl, so low I felt it in my chest. I froze. My rifle was steady in my hands, but my heartbeat was a drum in my ears. The underbrush ahead of me rustled, and then I saw it, 2 glowing eyes, yellow like a wolf's, but too high up. It stepped forward, revealing a massive, hulking frame covered in dark, matted fur. It was on 2 legs, towering over me, easily 7 feet tall. My instinct screamed run, but I was a hunter, not prey. I lifted my rifle and fired. The shot echoed through the trees, and for a moment, I thought I hit it. But the thing barely flinched. Instead, it released an ear-piercing howl that sent shivers through my bones. I backed away, my breath visible in the freezing air. Then I heard Greg screaming through the radio. "Run! It's coming!" My legs moved before my mind did. I sprinted through the trees, crashing through the underbrush, but the heavy thuds behind me meant it was giving chase. I fired blindly over my shoulder, but the beast didn't stop. I reached the truck just as Greg came barreling out of the woods, his jacket torn and face pale with terror. We jumped in, slamming the doors shut. The beast emerged from the trees, its massive claws dragging deep gouges into the earth as it let out a blood-curdling snarl. Greg floored it, and we tore out of there, the creature disappearing into the darkness. We never hunted Blackwood Forest again. Story 2. The Beast of Hollow Creek. I've hunted in Hollow Creek for years, tracking everything from wild boars to coyotes. The land stretched for miles, thick with pines and shadowed by the distant mountains. But there was always talk, whispers among the older hunters about something unnatural lurking in those woods. I never paid them much mind until I saw it for myself. It was early December, and I was out tracking a wounded buck. The blood trail led me deeper into the woods, where the trees grew so thick they blocked out the moonlight. My breath hung in the cold air as I crouched low, scanning the area. That's when I noticed something was wrong. The forest was too quiet, not even the sound of the wind, just silence. And then I saw the buck, or what was left of it. It had been torn apart, not by a cougar or a bear. This was different. The rib cage was crushed inward, like something had caved it in with immense force. Deep claw marks ran along its flanks, the gashes too wide for any normal predator. I swallowed hard, my grip tightening on my rifle. Then I heard it, a low growl, deep and unnatural. It came from behind me. I turned slowly, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. And there it was. A hulking, twisted figure stood in the brush. It was covered in thick, dark fur, its shoulders broad and hunched. But its face, God, its face, was something out of a nightmare. Elongated, with rows of jagged teeth and burning amber eyes. It was watching me, studying me. My instinct screamed shoot. I raised my rifle and fired. The shot rang out, striking it square in the chest. Nothing. It barely flinched before it let out a deep, guttural snarl and took a step forward. I chambered another round, but before I could fire, it moved. Fast, too fast. 1 second, it was 20 feet away. In the next, it was nearly on top of me. I did the only thing I could. I ran. I sprinted through the trees, my boots pounding against the frozen earth. I could hear it behind me, its breathing, its footfalls, impossibly heavy yet quick. My truck was half a mile away. I wasn't going to make it. Then, out of nowhere, a deafening gunshot rang out from my left. Another, then another. I turned my head just in time to see Old Man Harlow, a local hunter, standing near a ridge, shotgun raised. The beast snarled, its eyes flicking between us before it let out an ear-splitting howl and bolted into the woods. Harlow lowered his gun and looked at me. Told you not to hunt alone out here. That thing don't like competition. I never hunted Hollow Creek again. Story 3. The Thing in the Fog. I've hunted in the Appalachian woods for years, and I've seen my fair share of predators, bears, wolves, even the occasional mountain lion. But nothing, compared to what I saw that night. It started with a fog, thick, rolling and unnaturally fast, swallowing the pines in a ghostly white veil. My buddy, Travis, and I were tracking a pack of coyotes that had been picking off livestock near an old homestead. We had scoped the area earlier in the day, marking tracks, planning our spots. But when night fell, the woods changed. The air turned thick, heavy with a scent I couldn't place. Musky, like wet fur, but mixed with something rotten. It made my stomach churn. Then, the howls started. Not the high-pitched yips of coyotes, nor the deep bay of a wolf. These howls were long, deep, almost mournful. They carried through the trees, vibrating in my chest. Travis and I exchanged uneasy glances. "That ain't a coyote," he muttered. We pressed forward, rifles at the ready. The fog grew denser, wrapping around the trees like fingers. I could barely see a few feet ahead. And then I saw them. Eyes, amber, glowing in the mist. Not just one pair. 4, 5. More shifting in the darkness, circling us. "Shit, we gotta move." Travis's voice was tight with fear. A deep, guttural snarl came from the left. Then, a rustling from the right. My pulse pounded. We were surrounded. Something big moved in the fog. A shadow, taller than any wolf I'd ever seen. It let out a low, reverberating growl that rattled my bones. I raised my rifle. Travis fired first. The shot cracked through the stillness, the muzzle flash lighting up the mist for half a second. That's when I saw it. Towering, hunched, covered in dark fur. Its elongated snout curled back, exposing jagged teeth. Hands, human-like, but ending in claws, twitched at its sides. It wasn't alone. I didn't think. I just fired. The thing recoiled, but it didn't fall. The bullet should have killed it, but it only staggered back, letting out a furious snarl. Then, they moved. One lunged at Travis. He barely had time to react before it slammed into him, sending him flying backward. I heard his rifle clatter as he hit the ground. I fired again, aiming for its head. The shot rang out. This time, it howled in pain, stumbling away. "Travis, get up!" I shouted. He groaned, clutching his side, but he managed to scramble to his feet. We ran. The howls followed us, echoing through the trees. Heavy footfalls, branches snapping, but they didn't give chase, not fully. By the time we reached the truck, the fog was thinning. The forest was still, empty. We didn't speak the whole ride back. That was 2 years ago. Travis moved away not long after, wouldn't talk about it. But I still hunt those woods. And sometimes, when the fog rolls in, I swear I can still see those eyes watching me. Story 4. The Devil Under the Moon. Hunting had always been second nature to me. My father taught me, just like his father taught him. We respected the land, knew its predators, and understood the rules of the wild. But what I saw on that frigid January night in Wyoming wasn't natural. It was something else. Something wrong. I was tracking a buck. A big one. Probably the biggest I'd seen all season. The tracks were fresh, leading deeper into the valley where the trees twisted like skeletal fingers under the pale moonlight. It was quiet, the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. No wind, no rustling leaves, just the rhythmic crunch of my boots against the snow. Then, I noticed something odd. The deer tracks stopped, dead in the middle of a clearing. No struggle, no blood, just gone, as if the animal had been lifted straight into the sky. I scanned the trees, rifle ready, my breath coming out in short, cold puffs. That's when I heard it. A long, drawn-out breath. Not mine. Slowly, I turned, and there it was. A figure, crouched in the shadows between the trees. Massive. Its elongated limbs were folded unnaturally, like a grotesque marionette waiting to spring to life. Its fur was thick, dark, but patchy, revealing sinewy flesh underneath. And its eyes, Jesus Christ, its eyes, burning yellow, locked onto me with an intelligence that sent ice down my spine. For a moment, neither of us moved. My fingers tightened on my rifle. I had to shoot first. I raised my weapon. It moved, not like an animal, not like a man. Fast, blurred, wrong. Before I could even pull the trigger, it was gone. Just a whisper of motion, a dark shadow slipping between the trees. I whipped around, heart hammering. Nothing, just the empty clearing, the moon hanging uselessly overhead. Then, behind me, snap, a branch breaking, a low growl rumbling in the night. I didn't think. I ran. I ran like a man who knew he was already dead but refused to stop moving. My boots pounded against the frozen ground, my breath ragged. Behind me, I could hear it following, closing the distance with unnatural speed. The truck. I needed to make it to the truck. I burst through the tree-line, my vehicle in sight. But just as I reached the door, something slammed into me. Hard. I hit the ground, my head cracking against the ice. The world spun as a massive clawed hand pinned me down. I could smell it. Musky fur, blood, something rotten. It leaned in close, its breath hot against my face. That's when I saw its teeth. Rows of jagged, uneven fangs. A mouth too wide, too hungry. Then, just as fast as it appeared, it stopped. It turned its head sharply toward the woods, sniffing the air. A strange snarl, almost annoyed, rumbled from its throat. And then, it let me go. Just like that. I scrambled back, barely managing to climb into my truck. The beast stood there, watching, those golden eyes burning into me. Then, it faded into the trees. I don't know why it spared me. Maybe I wasn't worth the kill. Maybe something worse had caught its attention. Either way, I never hunted those woods again. And when the full moon rises, I make damn sure I stay inside. Story 5. The Cursed Hunt. I never believed in curses. Not until I saw what happened to my friend, Eli. We'd been hunting together for years, always venturing deep into the mountains where the big game roamed. But that season, Eli had his sights on something else. Something he wouldn't talk about until it was too late. He came to my cabin one night, his face pale and drawn. Said he'd been tracking something unnatural. Something that walked like a man but wasn't one. "I saw it, Nate," he whispered. "Big, covered in fur, but smart. It knew I was watching." I laughed at first, told him he was seeing things. But then he pulled up his sleeve. Deep claw marks ran from his shoulder to his elbow, the flesh raw and swollen. "It got close, but it didn't kill me," he muttered, like it wanted me to know it could. That's when I got nervous. Eli wasn't the type to scare easy. If he was shaken, something was very wrong. Still, against my better judgment, I agreed to go with him. We loaded up our rifles and set out at dawn, moving toward the ridge where he last saw it. The deeper we went, the quieter the forest became. No birds, no wind, just an eerie, unnatural stillness. I felt like we were being watched. Then, we found the tracks. Massive prints, bigger than any wolf I'd ever seen, dug deep into the frozen soil. They led up to a clearing, and then just stopped, like the thing had vanished into thin air. Eli was breathing hard, his hands shaking as he gripped his rifle. Then, a howl. Not distant, not deep in the woods. Close, right behind us. We spun, rifles raised, but the thing was already moving. It wasn't alone. I barely had time to aim before one of them lunged from the trees, its claws slashing through Eli's jacket. He screamed, firing wildly as it knocked him back. I got off a shot, square in the creature's side. It yelped, stumbling, but didn't go down. Instead, it snarled, yellow eyes flashing in the dim light. Then, they all howled. 3, maybe 4 of them, watching from the tree line. Their eyes burned like embers, their bodies shifting, stretching, like they weren't meant to be in this form. I grabbed Eli, dragging him up. "We have to go." We ran. Branches snapped behind us, heavy footfalls shaking the ground. I fired blindly over my shoulder, but the howls only grew closer. I don't know how we made it to the truck. Maybe they were playing with us. Maybe they wanted us to run. As I gunned the engine, Eli clutched his side, his breathing ragged. "It marked me, Nate," he choked out. "I can feel it. It's inside me." I didn't believe him. Not until a month later, when Eli went missing during the full moon. I found his cabin door torn clean off the hinges, claw marks scoring the floor. His rifle lay abandoned on the porch, and in the snow outside, massive footprints leading into the woods. I never saw Eli again, but sometimes when I hunt those mountains, I hear a howl in the distance, deep, guttural, almost familiar, and I pray it isn't him.